Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous daisy flower plant. This daisy flower plant is super easy to do, just basic crochet stitches, and the best thing about it, they are removable. You could just pop them straight off, put them in a lingerie bag in the washing machine, and then pop them back onto your bouquet. I also show you how to make this amazing grass at the bottom, and you don't need to make any leaves or anything like that. They just sit on those cute little stems. I show you how to do it step by step. To make this gorgeous daisy plant, you will need a planter box, somewhere to plant your daisies. I'm using a cute little square one, but if you're using a round one, I'll also show you how to do the grass for that. You'll also need some floral foam for inside, and you want that to be snug. You don't want anything falling out, because we want our daisies to be held nice and snug. 3 different colors of yarn, 1 eyelash for the grass, but if you don't have eyelash, you could also just use a regular green colored yarn and just make your own granny square to just pop in your planter. This is the English Garden Granny Square. I will link this in the description box down below. And then you'll need 1 color for your centers of your daisies and 1 color for your petals. And you will need some sticks. I'm using 7 knitting needles and 7 barbecue skewers. I would use barbecue skewers if I had tall enough ones. And you will also need cotton balls, 1 for each flower. This makes them super removable and super adjustable. You will need a pair of scissors. I am using a 5mm crochet hook for my flowers. And I am using a 6mm crochet hook for my grass. Plus, for your grass, if you're using eyelash yarn, you will also need a stitch marker. You will also need a little bit of floral tape. Get all your supplies ready, and let's get started. And yes, if you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, they're available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. Start by making a magic ring. So just lay your tail over your non-dominant hand and hold it down on your ring finger with your thumb. Wrap your yarn around your 2 fingers, making an X, and bring it around 3 fingers, just holding it underneath your thumb as well. Flip your hand over. You'll have 2 strands, a short one and a long one. Grab your crochet hook, slide it underneath the short strand, grabbing the long strand, bringing it under, and point the hook towards yourself. Slowly releasing your thumb a little bit, turn your hook to point away from you and grabbing that long strand. Now you can take your index finger and thumb and just pinch that loop on your hook and drag the yarn through that loop. So there is your magic ring, and chain 2. 1 and 2. Now we're going to go around our ring, making 23 double crochets. We want to make sure we're going over our tail. Now our chain counts as our first double crochet, so we're going to be making 22 double crochets into our ring. So 22 double crochets. There's 1, 2. So you can pause the video and just keep working along. 22 double crochets, making sure that you go over your tail. And if your tail gets really short, just give it a little bit of a pull so that you have some extra tail. So pause the video and keep working along. I'll see you when you have made 22 double crochets, 23 counting your chain. Are you enjoying this tutorial? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more quick and easy fun tutorials just like this. So when you have your 23 double crochets, including your chain, pull your tail. We don't have to shrink it completely shut. We'll do that later. You can do it now if you feel like it. So shrink it shut just a little bit. You don't have to pull it too hard. And now we're going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 to join. So there is our first real double crochet right there. We're going to go into the top of that chain, which is sitting right beside, and we want 2 strands of that chain on the top of our hook. So just slide your hook in, 2 strands on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join, and chain 1. Just like that. Now into our next stitch, which is this little guy laying down, so that loop is hanging a little in front, not really connected like a perfect V. That is our first stitch right there. So we're going to go into that stitch, making 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into the next stitch. Into the next 2 stitches, we're going to do our 2 single crochets together, or our SC2 tog. So into the first stitch, we're going to start our single crochet, but leave it on our hook. We're going to start a single crochet into the next stitch, but leave it on our hook. Wrap and take off all 3 loops. Into the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet into each. 1 and 2. And into the next 2 stitches, a decrease. So we're going to start a single crochet into the first stitch, start a single crochet into the second stitch, wrap and take off all 3 loops. Just like that. So into the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet into each. And you can pause the video if I'm going too fast. You could also adjust me in the speed. Just hit that gear on the video and slow me down. Or speed me up. Into the next 2 stitches, we're going to do a decrease. So it's single crochet 2 tog. So start your single crochet into the first stitch and start a single crochet into the second stitch. Wrap your yarn and take off all 3 loops, just like that. And into the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet into each. 1 and 2. So we're just working our way around, doing 2 single crochets by themselves, 2 single crochets together, all the way around. So into the next 2 stitches, start single crochet into each, wrap and take off all 3 loops. And into the next 2 stitches, 1 single crochet into each. 1 and 2. So we have 4 stitches left. We're going to do a decrease into all of these stitches. So into the first 2, we're going to make a decrease. So start 1 single crochet into each stitch, wrap and take off all your loops. And we're going to do that again into those last 2 stitches. So starting 1 and starting 2, wrapping and taking off all 3 loops. Just like that. So we made this cute little dish, and now we're going to slip stitch to the top of that first stitch to join, that little guy right there. So into that first real stitch, we're going to slip stitch to join. Slip stitch and chain 1. We're going to make our first stitch right here into this next stitch right there. So not where we joined, but into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. If you are not going to see where we joined, go ahead and pop a stitch marker just into that first stitch that we made. Right there, you can just pop a stitch marker in if you're not going to see where that is. So 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around, and I'll meet you when you get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, just make sure you have 16 stitches. So the first one is where we put our stitch marker if you used one. So just make sure you can roll your work up, just count those pretty little V's. So there is 1, 2, 3, we want 16. So I have 16, we are ready to keep going. So we're just going to slip stitch right into that first stitch, right where the stitch marker was. Just 1 little slip stitch. And chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Now our tail, this is when we can pull it really nice and shut. You don't want to break your yarn, but you definitely want it nice and snug. You want to close up that hole as best you can. And then thread your needle. I like a sharp tip needle. These are linked down below. They are a game changer for securing your tails. So my yarn is coming in this direction. I'm going to keep going in that direction. So I'm going to go around underneath the fat part of those stitches. Go forward a couple times, just like that, and then go back a couple times. Just into anywhere where it's fat. We don't want to be feeling our needle on the other side of the center of our flower. So forwards a couple times, back a couple times, and your tail will be really secure, especially with a sharp tip needle. And then cut off your tail. So now pop your center, well, inside it out, like that. There is our cute little dome, the center of our daisy, and now we're ready to start the petals. To start the petals, roll your little hat to the side. So look for where your join is. There is our stitch right at the join. We're going to go into the front loop, the second front loop after the join, right there. So pop your hook in, just like that. Loop of yarn on your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just hold it inside your little hat, and chain 13. 1, 2, 3, and 13. So now we're going to go into this front loop right there. We're working into each front loop for this round. So into the next front loop only. Just slide your hook under that next front loop. So only one strand of that loop on your hook, and slip stitch. And chain 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there is my 14. Into the next front loop, that next stitch, just the front loop only. Just right there. Slip stitch to finish that petal. And chain 14 again. Slip stitch into that next front loop. Like that, and chain 14 again. And slip stitch into the next front loop. So you can pause the video and keep working around. We're just making these chain 14s and slip stitching into the front loop only of the next stitch all the way around. So I will meet you when we get back closer to our join. When you get back to your join, where that tail is, I like to work into that stitch right before that tail, this little loop right at the front. It just helps your petals look like they're spaced out correctly or evenly. So into that front loop right by our tail, slip stitch, and chain 14. Now our next petal, we're going to put it down right into this little tiny loop. This front loop right here. Just around that join, we want to be putting them into every spot we can, just so it makes our daisy look nice and evened out. So into this front loop, basically the join gets extra petals. Slip stitch, chain 14, into the next front loop. We're going to do our slip stitch, and chain 14 again. We're going to end in the very same front loop that we began. So chain 14, and we're going to slip stitch into that same front loop, right where we began, just beside that first chain we made. So slip stitch to join, chain 1. Now flip all of your petals forward. We want to be looking for our back loops for the next round. So looking at the back of your work, you can see these little back loops all waiting for us along the edge. Get your tail behind you. And just pop your hook in to that same stitch, but the back loop of it. And slip stitch to start the next round. And chain 1. So that counts as our first single crochet. Fold all your petals forward, just give them a little pinch, and you'll be able to see your front or your back loops right here, just waiting for us, all laying along that edge. So we're going to do 1 single crochet into each, just to keep our little hat in shape. So 1 single crochet into each back loop, just folding your petals down, going nice and slow, making sure you get into each back loop. You should have a total of 16 single crochets at the end of this round. So just pause the video and keep working around 1 single crochet into each back loop, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. And then just slip stitch into that first stitch to join. One slip stitch, chain 1, and into the same stitch, but just the front loop. Right here, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So wrap your yarn and into the front loop only of the same stitch, 1 half double crochet and 1 more half double crochet. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets into each front loop all the way along, just grabbing that front loop only. So wrap your yarn, slide the next front loop onto your hook, 2 half double crochets, slide the next front loop on your hook, 2 half double crochets, and just keep doing that all the way around. It's harder in the beginning, it gets easier. The front loops get bigger as you go around. In the beginning right here, it's a bit tricky, so don't feel too upset by it. It's hard for everybody, and then it gets a lot easier from around here. Just slide those front loops onto your hook, 2 half double crochets into each. Just take your time. We want a total of 32 half double crochets for this round. So pause the video, keep working around, and I'll meet you when we get back to where we started. When you get back to where we started, our last front loop is right here. So that's our last 2 half double crochets. When you get back around to your joint, you don't have to worry about how many stitches you have. We just want that row of half double crochets just to hold our petals up. It's kind of like a little petal bed. So don't worry how many stitches you have. You don't have to count like if you were doing a granny square or anything like that. Just slip stitch into that first stitch to join and chain 1 like that, and go ahead and cut your yarn. Now for our flowers, we've already sewn in the tail for our center for the magic ring. That's the important part. Now our other tails, you can sew them in if you want. You can also knot them. So just get all your tails into the inside of your flower. So the 2 from the middle, we can just poke through with our crochet hook. And the one on the edge, we're going to sew that one into the center. We just want that tail in the center area. So all 3 tails in the middle. And now we're just going to give them a knot. So right down, we don't want to snug it too much. We don't want to cinch up our flower. So twice, and you can kind of pull it a bit tight, but I like to do 3 times and then pull. That'll make sure your yarn doesn't grab one of your stitches and shrink it down. So there, our white yarn is very, very secure. I'm just going to take one of those tails and tie it with our center color. So twice without pulling too much, and then 3 times where we pull it down a lot. There we go. So all of those knots are not coming undone. Knot, knot, and then just snip them off. just like that. So I'm going to be using eyelash yarn, and I'm going to show you how to work with eyelash yarn to get a granny square just perfect grass for your planter. I'll also be linking this yarn in the description box if you love the look of it. It is super soft. You wouldn't even believe that it is as great as it is, but it is definitely one of my top 3 yarns like in the world. And if your flower pot is round, go ahead and follow this tutorial up there for my Easter basket grass. That will give you the perfect round disc to go in the top of a round flower pot. To make your eyelash granny square, we're just going to start by making a slip knot, just normal how we do. We don't need a long tail because we're not cutting anything off, and we're going to work over it a bit. So a short tail and a slip knot. Shrink that down and pop it onto your 6mm hook and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now you cannot see your stitches. You can see it a little bit. We're going to be going by feel. So if you are not sure how to do a granny square, then follow along with the granny square tutorial. I'll also link that up in the cards. We are doing that exact pattern, but we're going to do it in eyelash yarn. So we're going to go by feeling. So you don't have to watch the screen as much as you have to feel with your finger and thumb and listen along. So you can feel that knot, our slip knot. We're going to go into that stitch right above. So I can feel it right here. That's where we're going to work. So we're just doing our ring, our chain 3 ring. But the trick here is to make sure we hold it open with our finger and thumb. We want a U shape underneath our hook, and we want to be holding that open. And we're also going to be working over our tail. Okay, so slip stitch to form a ring. Don't let go. We want that open. And chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Wrap your yarn right where we're holding it open, 2 double crochets. And I'm not letting go, I'm still holding it open. So there is 1, and there is 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, still holding it open. I'm holding it open the whole time. I'm just going to slowly rotate my thumb around so I have more space along the ring. So 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2, still holding it open. 3 more double crochets into the center of that ring. 1, 2, and 3. Still have my finger in there, still holding it open. You can try to slide those stitches back if you can. Chain 2 again, 1 and 2, and our last 3 double crochets. Still going over my tail. Now I'm not holding it open, I'm just pulling at my beginning shell, my beginning stitch. I can feel it now where it's open. So there's 2 and 3. So there is our square. Now at the top of our chain, again, wiggle in your fingers to find that chain. Just pop your hook into wherever you think the top of that chain 3 is. It doesn't matter. We're going for 2 strands on our hook, but do your best. We're really just kind of winging it. So find that chain 3 just with your finger and thumb. We know where it is. We're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet to the top of that chain 3 to join. Just anywhere where you think the top of that chain 3 is. So we're going to join with 1 single crochet. Now I'm going to hold that open underneath my hook. Pop my thumb straight through it, or my finger, and we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Make a bigger loop and get your stitch marker. We're going to pop our stitch marker right into where we're holding it open with our finger and thumb. That's going to mark our corner space. so we know where it is when we're working around our square. We always have to use a stitch marker. So get that loop back on your hook. Wiggle your fingers to find that space again. Our stitch marker is in the same spot. 2 double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. Now feel along. You'll feel your 1 double crochet, 2nd double crochet, 3rd. You'll feel that chain space for our next corner. Again, pop your finger and thumb into there to hold it open. And do a corner. So corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. And I'm keeping my thumb right in that space, or my finger, depending, so I know where that is. So I've done 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, oops, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same space, and I'm holding it open with my finger and thumb. That's how I know where it is. I have my finger and thumb right in there. 1, 2, and 3. So there's our corner. Feel along again. We want to feel for our next corner space, which is right there, and we're going to do a corner. So 3 double crochets. And I'm going to do the whole square with you, so don't feel like I'm leaving you behind. 1, 2, here's 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Now if I'm going too fast or too slow, hit that gear icon on the video and hit the speed. You can slow me down or speed me up, and you can also just pause me and get caught up. So adjust my speed right down there with that gear. Into the next space, wrap your yarn, and we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into the next corner space. So there's 2, and 3, chain 2, I'm still holding it open, I have my pinky in it this time, and 3 double crochets into the same corner space. Just like that. And into the next space, that's where our stitch marker is. So you can see why we put our stitch marker in, or we would be really lost right now. So into the space where our stitch marker is, we're going to finish our corner. I'm going to leave my stitch marker there just so you can see the space I'm working into. But you can take the stitch marker out. There is 1. We're going to do 3 double crochets. So there is 2, and here is 3. Now if you're using a small flower pot, this might be the right size for you. If you're using a larger flower pot, let's keep going. So we're going to join with a chain 1 and a single crochet to the top of that chain 3 to join. So just use your finger and thumb to isolate that first stitch, that first chain, and we're just going to make 1 single crochet into the top of it. Doesn't exactly matter where, and you can't really use your eyes. Try to get 2 strands on the top of your hook, but again, don't worry about it. And before you finish that stitch, find that new corner and just hold that open with your finger and thumb. 1 single crochet to join, still holding it open, and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets into that same space. 1 and 2. So this is when I make a bigger loop, and I take out my stitch marker, and I pop it into that space I'm holding open with my finger and thumb. So that marks the new corner of the round we're working on. So loop back on your hook, shrink it down, and now the only difference is we have a space along the side. So into that space along the side, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and into the corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So we're just using our fingers to feel in between the shells, in between the stitches. So there's 1 and 2. Here is 3, chain 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner space. So our corners are always going to be the same. 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Into the next space along the side in the center, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And into that corner space, just using your fingers and thumb to feel that space, we're going to do a corner. Corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. So there is 2 and 3, chain 2, and into the same space, 3 more double crochets. So I guess the trick is just remembering that you have to finish your corner. So just concentrate when you get to your corners that you're doing your 3 double crochets, your chain 2, and your 3 double crochets into that new corner space. So now feel your way along. There is a space along the side, so that gets 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Into your corner space, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1, and 2, and 3 more double crochets into that corner space. 1, 2, and 3. Into that center space along the side, 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And now when you get to your corner space where our stitch marker is, 3 double crochets into that same space as your stitch marker. Just to finish off that first corner we started. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then just keep checking if it is the right size. I still have to make mine a little bit bigger. So to join and continue, chain 1, and we're going to, again, feel with your finger and thumb to find that chain. Now find your chain with your finger and thumb and just feel where the top of it is. And push your hook in. We want to get 2 or most of that stitch on the top of our hook, 2 strands on the top, and single crochet to join. Hold that corner open with your finger and thumb and chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and 2 double crochets into that same corner space. 1 and 2. So now this is when we're going to move up our stitch marker. So just make a bigger loop and take your hook out and move your stitch marker up to your new corner space. Right there. Just so we can see where it is when we're coming along or going around the corner. Loop of yarn back on your hook. And also, we're not turning our work for making grass. You will find if you're using eyelash yarn, one side will have less of the eyelash and one side will have a lot. I doubt you can really see it in the camera, but the underside is much more lush than the top side. So we don't turn our work when making our artificial grass. Now feel along. We're going to do the same as the last row, but there's going to be 2 spaces along each side. And that's going to be this general rule for as large as you want your granny square to be. Each round is the exact same, except you will have 1 more space along the side. So the next round, if you're making it bigger, will have 3 spaces along the side, etc. So this is the repeat. So into the first space, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, and into the next space along the side, 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. So if you're making yours bigger, you'll just have more spaces here until you reach the corner. When you reach your corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets into that same corner space. There is 2 and 3, chain 2, 1 and 2, and 3 more double crochets into that same corner. 1, 2, and 3. So now you can pause the video and keep working along. 3 double crochets into each space along the sides, and corners, 3 double crochets, chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Keep working all the way around, just using your finger and thumb to feel where you're going, and I'll meet you when we get back to our stitch marker. When you get back to where you started or where your stitch marker is, go ahead and check if it is the right size for your planter box. And this is going to be the right size for mine. So that is the right size for mine. I'm going to join and finish. If you want to make yours bigger, just join with a chain 1 and a single crochet to join, and just keep repeating that round until your granny square or your grass is the size you want it to be. When it is the size you want it to be, go ahead into that space with the stitch marker and just finish off that corner with your 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch to join. So chain 2, 1 and 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain to join. So just kind of guessing where it is, feeling along as best you can. Try to get most of that chain on the top of your hook. So 2 strands on the top of your hook, and slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, and pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down, and remove your stitch marker. You can sew in your ends if you feel like it, or if you're selling these things, that would be a good thing to do. If it's for your own house, it's up to you if you want to sew in your tail. So then just grab your planter box and put your grass on top. If it's a bit snug, you can give it a little bit of a pull, get it to relax a little bit, and that will fit just right inside your planter box. So now your planter box is ready for your flowers. Grab your cotton ball and either a knitting needle or a barbecue skewer with a button or bead glued on to the end, and just poke it through. Just give it a little bit of a twist, getting it through that cotton ball. Getting that point through can be a little bit tricky, so when you get it pushed almost through, pull your knitting needle back or your barbecue skewer and just cut off the tip of that cotton ball, and now it'll slide through a lot better. All the way up to the top, and then just kind of close it up around the top. We want that to all kind of stay together. Just kind of like that. And now we're just going to pop the tip and all this cotton into the top of our daisy, just to fill up, just like that. And now get your flower petals laying down nice on that little nice half double crochet bed we made for them, just like that. You can wrap the stem if you like, just like that. Make sure your cotton is nice at the top, it's filled up that center. And there is your daisy. So I have 7 long ones on knitting needles and 7 medium ones on about 10-inch barbecue skewers, all wrapped and ready to go. So I have my Oasis foam cut and pushed snugly into my container. Not to the top, there is a good amount of space where it is lower than the edge of my planter box. And then a granny square of eyelash dazzle. I'm going to start by putting a small one or a short one right in the middle. Just poke it down a little bit. And then just putting them one. I'm taking my long ones now. We want them all starting in about the same spot. And then the tall ones, we are putting really high up. We're not pushing them very far, and we want these to be as tall as they can be, because daisies grow really close to each other. So again, I'm putting it right in those petals. And we're just going to keep working our way around this center flower down there at the bottom. So now just look around your plant pot and see where you need another tall one. We'll put all of our tall ones before we move to the shorts. So now we're just going to work around the edge with putting our shorter ones in. Just keep turning it and putting your short ones where they need to be. And there is my planter pot. You can see how I've kind of put them all into the center area down at the bottom, just so it looks like they're coming up as a daisy bush would, or a daisy plant. Now you can go and just flatten your petals a little bit, push them back down onto their beds, make sure they're all a little bit how you like them to be. So I hope you enjoyed making your daisy flower pot as much as I enjoyed making mine. I'm waiting for you in that video right there. And stay hooked.